Hey guys, Tarke here, and today I'm going to go through my Act 1 to Act 10 leveling advice for this build, and also, before we get into that quickly, my timing has been excellent. So, a couple of hours after I made my video outlining my plans for this build, Havoc uploaded a full speedrun commentary from him doing Act 1 to Act 10, early maps, etc. of a Lightning Arrow build. And at the end of the video, what was very interesting is he did like a Path of Building like sit down, and he, after doing some tinkering, found that his best like early game build was within like 5 points of my planned thing. So that was very reassuring that completely independently, one of the best players in the game who does a lot of bow leveling himself decided that the best early game setup was the setup I'm planning on playing in SSF. So that was pretty good. And also I'll leave a link to his video, because obviously his insight on the build is excellent, but you can then see a complete Act 1 to Act 10 like leveling guide, right? So I've done the whole thing on a 4-link. I did get my hands on a Quill Rain, which was quite lucky. I've actually had my hands on 2 Quill Rains. Now, my build is planned entirely around Quill Rain, but you can just do the build with any flat elemental damage, high attack speed bow. You're mostly just looking for flat elemental damage and an attack speed mod. You've got 2 main ways of leveling, either as Trinity or stacking a pure element. Trinity is the preferred version. I'm going just stacking lightning just because of the gear and items I had available to me leveling in SSF. The thing which is quite handy about it is the tree is identical whichever way you do it, and the gem colors are the same. Lightning Pen is a blue gem, Trinity is a blue gem. So you don't really need to change anything there. The only thing that really changes is some of your early game auras. I'm currently running a Grace, Purity of Elements, and a... ooh, that nasty bleed. A Grace, Purity of Elements, a level 1 Precision, and a Herald of Thunder, because I'm going for a lightning setup currently. And yeah, it's been working really nice and smooth. Early game for auras, I recommend you run Herald of Ice, Herald of Thunder, and a Precision. With the Precision, you level it based entirely on... I have no idea where I want to go now. Probably pick up Spell Suppression. You level it based entirely on where your mana is at, where your gear is at, and what other auras you're running. And also how far along you are in the tree in terms of reduced mana reservation. One thing worth noting, I have my Merc Lab that I picked up. I'm not using either Point Blank or Fast Shot currently. I decided to pick up the Chain or leveling. The exact same thing which happened when I played my Rupture build. I knew that I would level quickest with Ricochet, and I kind of want to keep Ricochet in the core build. Worth noting, Havoc plays with Ricochet, not Fast Shot, so yeah. Fast Shot is pretty good, but that can be a discussion for a separate video. This is just focused all around the leveling. So we're doing everything currently on just 4-link Quill, and the main thing I picked up, which has actually been quite nice, is in Act 6. I found a Wake of Destruction, which is currently giving me about an extra 3k damage. So about a third of my damage is coming from the Wake of Destruction, which is quite big, obviously. If you were using a just normal elemental bow, that would be much less of a like it'd be a much smaller portion of your damage. Because we're using Quill Rain, our main damage scaling comes from flat elemental damage sources, so it's much bigger because we've got Quill Rain and very limited sources currently because we're still on the Axe and SSF and no Twink gear of flat elemental. The more flat elemental you have, the less important it is to stack. And if you're just using a rare bow, it wouldn't be as significant of like a, oh my god, this is an amazing early game pickup. Otherwise, we've got some flat elemental damage on our gloves, a little bit of flat lightning on our quiver, and then a little splash, tiny bit of flat damage elsewhere. The other thing you need to watch out for when leveling this build is your flat accuracy, because of precise technique. So we get guaranteed 40% more attack damage all the time. There's no like uptime or anything, but our accuracy rating has to be higher than our maximum life. So the main things you need to watch when leveling this build is your accuracy rating and then your elemental damage. If you're just like all in on one elemental damage source, then use the penetration gem of that element. Otherwise, if you're relatively balanced or you've got two within decent range, go Trinity. And whenever you level up and you pick up a life node, just quickly check your tooltip before and after. If you pick up your life node and then you lose like a third of your damage, then you know, whoopsie, I've offset my accuracy. So you now need to pick up more accuracy. Fortunately, it's very easy to pick up accuracy. You have precision, which you can just level up as you need more accuracy. If you don't need more accuracy, stop leveling it. And the other thing which is really good, obviously, is a particular early game bow mastery. 100 flat accuracy rating per green socket on equipped bow. So that can be a very easy way of getting a big chunk of flat accuracy, which makes precise technique very easy to level around. Another thing which is quite handy about playing around precise technique is we are a relatively low life build using Ghost Shrouds. So we can stack defense through Ghost Shroud scaling without having to juggle too much accuracy. Because if we instead went for a setup which was more like, I'm going the wrong way. If I instead went for a setup which was more like, you know, 6k life, then suddenly we need more than 6k flat accuracy. Whereas if we only got like 4k life in our in-game setup and then like 1k energy shield, or, you know, give or take here or there, then obviously that's much easier to juggle. So that's another upside of this. Again, if you follow the series along, transition to crit is a thing, but you can do everything on a non-crit setup. And that was also something that Havoc realized from his test run, that he was like, oh, there's actually enough damage here that you can do a complete precise technique non-crit thing. And he was kind of like blown away by that, because it's such a big change from like where bows used to be, which is excellent. Like, it's such a massive improvement. This addition of the node and some of the changes to flat LE and everything, bow leveling is the best it's ever been, in my opinion. So good. The other thing which I'm actually being really bad at maintaining is what's your single target setup. So I'm currently using a 4-link Lightning Arrow, which is Lightning Arrow, GMP, Mirage Archer, Lightning Penetration. I've been running that 4-link in my Quill Rain throughout the entire leveling process. And then you need a single target setup. Now, anything near a wall, you can actually kind of like shotgun with the Lightning Arrow, because Lightning Arrow does like splash when it hits a target. I've been swapping between either a dedicated 4-link Lightning Arrow Barrage or a Ballista setup. Now, the advantage of the Ballista setup is if you want to do maximum damage, this is like you're doing endgame bosses, you're going to your Uber Elders, your Mavens, or whatever. You just take out your GMP link and you swap in the Barrage link, and then you have a fully juiced Barrage single target setup and a fully juiced Totem setup. If you're someone who doesn't like gem swapping at all, you're like, I despise gem swapping with a passion, and you're only running like one 5-link or one 6-link, or you've got very limited gear slots, then I would probably recommend not using a Totem setup. I probably recommend having just a like Lightning Arrow clear setup, and then either a Lightning Arrow or Barrage single target setup. Just because the quality of life is better, but the DPS potential is lower, if that makes sense. But I've been pretty comfortable in the leveling process, just using totems and then like a self-attack thingy. You can see here, damage isn't the best. Would be better if I was doing barrage swaps, but I'm testing stuff out, right? I think the important thing to notice on the Ballista setup, my Ballista setup isn't doing maximum damage. It's actually doing significantly lower damage than it should be, because I didn't want to spend a bunch of colors recoloring. I'm not currently running Focus Ballistas, and Focus Ballista is kind of what makes the Ballista setup like even not worth running, but it's what makes it good. One of the slight upsides of not running Focus Ballista is you have ballistas that attack independently of you, so you can drop your ballistas and just run around in circles and whittle down bosses that way. But the main draw of ballistas these days is you use the Focus Ballista support gem, which makes the ballistas attack whenever you attack. And yeah, that does a whole lot of damage, and is particularly good if you're going for a very high attack speed bow setup because... Ooh, that's a lot of life. Keep all of that. Because, yeah, forcing your totems to attack really fast is really, really strong. The other thing which is neat about the Focus Blister thing is you could use it to, like, off-screen. So totems have, like, a set... Oh, I need to get my skill point. But I'll do that afterwards. Totems have, like, a set attack range. And if the enemy is outside of the attack range, the totem doesn't do anything. But with Focus Blister, if you attack, the totem attacks in that direction. So you can, like, more reliably... Have I got good enough resists? Yeah. I'll do Katava, and then in my own time, I'll double my skill point. So you can very reliably snipe things off screen, which is really neat. So that's cool. One thing I will do in my endgame setup, but I haven't been doing while leveling because I didn't have the correct gem links for it, is run either a Wrath or Anger in a Divine Blessing life tap setup. This gives you a on-demand instant cast button, which will just give you like 20-30% more damage, which is obviously pretty strong. I shouldn't need to explain why that's strong. Having on-demand auras is really, really good. And again, is quite a nice advantage of having... is quite a nice advantage of not scaling mana at all. So the way the Divine Blessing life tap setup works is it costs 50% of your mana base, and then adds a flat cost from the Divine Blessing, and then the life tap stuff. But it's still, like, it's going to be like 1.5k-ish, 1k at max level, which is very manageable. The sustain has actually been pretty smooth while leveling. I ended up picking up this full cluster, which with the Quill Rain gives us 8 life gain on hit, 6 mana gain on hit, which also means I haven't had to run a mana flask. That's also one advantage of not running totems and just running a dedicated barrage setup. I think I prefer the dedicated barrage setup, but I've been testing out the totem setup. Is the only time mana can be a little bit like irritating on this build is if you yourself dropping your totems. Whereas if you're just self-attacking, then you have none of that issue. One thing which is both a pro and a con depending on your playstyle, and it can make running stuff like Far Shot or Point Blank more manageable, is if you drop totems and you're dropping blink arrows tactically, then you can mess with boss AI, boss movement, and where they position themselves. So the reason why this is good is it makes you... It opens you up to manipulate the boss. Cool. It can mean that they'll focus you, not the totems, or focus the totems, not you, to get maximum damage out of either Point Blank or Far Shot, respectively, depending on which way you've taken the build. One of the Corrupting Blood I need to sort out. One of the downsides of that, though, is it can make boss movement and targeting unpredictable. It's one of the reasons why I never run golems in my build. An advantage of not running any minions or any totems or anything is you always know in what direction the boss attacks are going to go, because you are the only target. As soon as you start dropping other sources, you can end up having unpredictable attacks, and that's when you're more likely to get, like, randomly bopped on the head by something. But at the same time, for the most part, if you're staying on top of it, you can have it so the boss doesn't focus you and focuses another source entirely. Or in the case of, like, having totems, you drop the totems and you run around independently while still damaging the boss, which is obviously very strong. So I'll get Katava down and then I'll show off my leveling routing, but I think it's just important to explain, like, the core methodology, different setups, and just stuff which will make your leveling experience smoother. One thing that I really like is running Period of Elements while leveling. I quite like running Period of Elements just generally. I find it very soft in terms of gearing. So because flat elemental damage is so important to us, having that gear flexibility of not needing to worry about... Okay, I should redo this. Not needing to worry about any aura stuff, having very easily capped or all res while leveling, and not needing to worry about having to be rolling flasks early on for element immunity and everything, means we can be very greedy, so that when we do get like a pair of gloves with double Ellie rolls or like a really nice quiver, we can actually use it, which I think is something that people really don't evaluate correctly when it comes to period of elements. They look at it and go like, oh, but like this doesn't give me damage. But if you compare it to, say, Wrath, which I have here, so the Wrath is giving you 12 to 186 flat lightning damage. That's a lot of lightning damage. But how much flat elemental damage am I getting from the period of elements by freeing up the resistance on all of my gear? You know, not as much, but like a pretty comparable chunk, which, you know, I think is something to consider. But if you don't like running it, don't run it. And you can obviously run Determination, Defiance Banner, if you just want, like, to face tank things. But I felt pretty tanky without it. I felt like I haven't had the need. I've had 8 deaths total on this character, which is a lot. But I think it's worth stating that 7 of those deaths were in Act 1 farming Arch Nemesis, like Giga, Berserker, Hasted ones with no gear and SSF. If it wasn't for that, I had 1 death, which was me getting bopped in Act 6. I didn't have capped fire res, and the Tukahama guys, they do a lot of fire damage if you haven't got fire res. So that was kind of yikes. So that's cool. And obviously Havoc has been doing all of his testing in hardcore, so you know you can make the build tanky enough to do the content in hardcore, which is also nice. One thing which is also worth talking about when it comes to Ricochet, I keep umming and ahhing over Ricochet whenever I play a Deadeye, is it does pseudo increase, not even pseudo, it does straight up increase your single target, and it makes running like map cleared, like GMP setup skills way less punishing, because I can shoot into a wall, bounce off the wall, still hit the single target. So it means that you're not as dependent on having to gem swap, and it also means that you don't need to run a like chain, fork, or pierce link in your links, which makes your links more flexible, and also means that if you are going to be sat there swapping out gems for like AoE or single target, you only need to swap the GMP to the barrage, and also to then swap out the chain for something else. So it makes the coloring a lot easier, it makes the build like a lot smoother in that sense, and it also, from the point of view of running barrage without fast shot, the really nice thing about barrage with fast shot is your projectiles have no spread, which means that it's much easier to 100% guarantee you're hitting the boss with all of the projectiles. Whereas if you have spread and you're firing with over long range, you might miss 1 or 2. Well, if you've got a chance that if that projectile misses, it hits the wall, then bounces back onto the boss anyway, then it offsets a lot of that. Oh, sod it, it'll work out in maps. So that's actually another really nice thing about Ricochet. Ricochet is just, you play faster with it. Is it the most optimal DPS thing in Endgame? No, not necessarily, but it's fun. And it does give you really nice clear, and does also still give you some single target. So, you know, it gets a +1 from me. It also, as I've said before in previous videos, makes running very tight indoor maps really nice, and Lightning Arrow is particularly good at indoor maps because of its inbuilt splash mechanic. So whenever it hits a target, it does like a splash. So if you're doing really tight indoor maps like Toxic Sewers, stuff like that, where all the enemies are really tightly clumped up, then you're getting guaranteed really nice splashes, and if you're hitting into a wall, it bounces off the wall, and just splash damage is good in Path of Exile. Yeah. So yeah, the lab we're missing, because obviously we're still in the axe, is the focal point, which is the Sniper's Mark one. Sniper's Mark with Mark 1 hit feels excellent while leveling. You have it up 90% of the time whenever you need it. And the other thing which is quite neat about it is if you are running a Mana Flask, is it does give you Mana Flask charges on hit, which is really nice. So Sniper's Mark it also gives you Life Flask charges on hit. With Soul of Raslava, and then also Replenishing Remedies when you feel like you need it, gives you very steady flask time uptime, which is excellent. You can see here what I was talking about, where like if you're using the totems, you will yourself. The neat thing though is because we have so much mana gain on hit, if we do go like if we auto into a boss twice, we like instantly refill our mana, which is really cool. And that is one upside of going for the Quill Rain setup over a traditional rare bow, is the life gain on hit becomes like a pseudo defensive layer. that would also be another upside for self-casting a barrage setup, because it's just you're getting more of the hits in yourself. But again, if you're being super optimal with your gem links, you have, for when it really matters, you have a fully single target barrage setup and then a totem setup. Things to talk about in terms of like totem setups, if you want to go Lightning Arrow or if you want to go Siege Ballista. One thing which is quite nice about Siege Ballista is it has inbuilt Pierce. So early on I was running Siege Ballista as my totem of choice, because if you have a totem with inbuilt Pierce, you can be kind of lazy with your targeting somewhat, which makes having random stray adds on some of the act bosses feel much nicer, which is obviously neat. Quality of life is generally quite good in Path of Exile, I find. And again, I'll go over the core like leveling tree and gem links for leveling once I get Katava down. But yeah, it's been a very smooth leveling process. You can be like, oh, but you've gotten all the unique items. Generally in Path of Exile... Oh, that was dumb. I got greedy dropping totem instead of blinking. Or I blinked. I blinked like too close. Anyway, my bad. Me bad at video game. Generally, with every league mechanic, there is a way to force unique items. Some leagues are easier than others, but because Quill Rain is a level 5 item, it's incredibly easy to force. So any kind of league mechanic which gives you a source of uniques in the early game, you can just guarantee that you'll get it with a little bit of time in SSF. In a trade league environment, you can just buy it. Super common item. It doesn't matter how meta of an item it is. Doesn't matter if everyone's playing Explosive Arrow or whatever. It's so common it can never really be expensive. You can chance into it at the end game with Porcupine cards for a guaranteed 6-link. Another nice thing about this build is you have multiple 6-link options guaranteed. You can use Porcupine cards. You can use Imperial Legacy for crafted rares. Very, very straightforward. So let's talk about leveling, tree order, and all of that good stuff. Very straightforward to level. So route through the early projectile attack speed nodes. I'll move my cam for this one. Just guaranteed damage, attack speed. It's just cozy. Once you hit to ballistics, you then have a choice. Do you want more damage? I switch to the eagle. Do you need stats early on? Take Primal Spirit. Most people will probably take Primal Spirit early, then spec out of it later. Route through the life. Get to finesse. Then you have a couple of options. If you want to be like super just rush to precise technique as quickly as possible, drop down here, rush right here, grab precise technique. You might want to grab Farsight first, just so you can get some guaranteed accuracy scaling, because you get accuracy scaling on these nodes, and maybe take the mastery, so you get that guaranteed chunk of flat accuracy and everything. But otherwise, if you're not feeling the need to rush it, just route through the damage this way. If you're wondering why I skipped over Thick Skin, it was early on I was juggling my life to accuracy, and then I just haven't felt the need to need it because I'm playing SSF. I was playing in hardcore. I'd obviously grab Thick Skin straight away because getting 15% life for 2 points is incredibly strong. Once you've gotten that core package, you then just fill in the tree as needed. Early on, you can run quite a lot of auras, so it can be a valid case to come straight up and grab Charisma and increase mana reservation. Early on, you can run Clarity, you can run Precision, you can run Vitality, you can run Double Herald, as I said. Once you get to Act 3, you can then drop some of those fluff auras like Clarity and Vitality, put in stuff like Grace, put in either an Anger, a Wrath, or a Punitive Elements. From here, you have choices. If you're running Grace, I'd recommend coming along this way, picking up Revenge of the Hunted with the Grace Reservation Mastery, and grab Force of Nature for a bunch of damage. I picked the All-Res Mastery early on because I wanted resistances. Then come across, grab Acuity, Master Fletcher. Either order is fine. The Mastery, which gives Dexterity actually bonus gains +3, is also really strong for getting guaranteed flat accuracy early for working around precise technique. I highly recommend taking increases and reductions to projectile speed as soon as you get a Quill Rain. because Quill Rain has up to 100% increased projectile speed, and you will naturally pick up projectile speed on this tree. So that is a very strong 1-point damage node. If you haven't got any sort of projectile speed yet, take the Blink Mirror Arrow cooldown recovery rate, because it's just very strong. If you need resistances, grab Survivalist. If you don't need resistances, skip it. At this point, you just rush up, take this full wheel, or just these 2 points. It gives you your life and mana sustain, gives you the leech. Until you get this, just run a life flask and a mana flask. Grab Blood Drinker. Getting the life recovery on kill is incredibly strong. If you feel like you need more life, obviously fill in life wheels as you're traveling. Then, yeah, just travel up, grab Ghost Dance. I then rushed over to Arcing Blows because I just wanted the damage. And this is particularly strong if you're on a pure lightning setup. If you're on a Trinity setup where only half of your damage is lightning, it's weaker, but on a pure lightning setup, this is a very high priority. But lightning damage with non-critical strikes is lucky. Obviously, in a non-crit build, this is a huge DPS increase, super strong. Can't understate enough how strong this is. It's amazing, and it's one of the reasons why this is like a powerful setup with very little gear. At this point, you have a couple of options. You either fill in like life ES nodes to make yourself tankier. If you want to run more auras, grab Influence. If you're running lots of little auras, I would recommend taking 8% increased damage for each of your auras or herald skills affecting you. If you're running big chunky auras, instead take auras from your skills have increased effect on you. And yeah, that's it. At that point, you just fill in nodes as you need them. If you like running with Point Blank, take Point Blank early, and then also take this marked node. If you don't like running Point Blank, don't take it. If you're running Far Shot, obviously, don't take it. I'll probably end up taking Point Blank just because I'm really liking Ricochet. So even though I don't really like Point Blank, I much prefer Far Shot gameplay. I'll probably take it, and it is also right next to such an incredibly strong marked node, which then gives me the option to either get increased effective marks for even more projectiles and more damage, or enemies near your marked enemy are blinded, which is obviously more defense. Gem links. Early on, you run Galvanic Arrow. Galvanic Arrow plus Mirage Archer. It has inbuilt pierce, so you don't need to worry about anything. That is your 2-link that will take you through to level 12. If you get a 3-link, add a flat damage gem, added cold most likely. Once you get Lightning Arrow, I ran Lightning Arrow LMP Mirage Archer without any pierce or anything, and it felt super cozy all the way through till getting a Ricochet. I got Ricochet as my first lab, just because I was like, sod it, I want chain. Once you get a 4-link, you run either Lightning Pen or Trinity, as I said. If you are lucky and you got up to a 5-link, you then, depending on your colors, generally in SSF, you don't be like throwing away loads of chromatics early on. I would recommend, if you got a red gem, running Inspiration to lower your mana cost and give you more damage. If you had either a green or a blue gem, run either added cold or added lightning to balance out your damage rolls there. If you've got 6 things, obviously elemental damage with attacks, etc. is very strong. For your totem setup on a minimal set of links, you'll be running just like Siege Ballista plus any flat elemental damage, Focus Ballista, Penetration, elemental damage with attacks, Inspiration. I actually even quite like running Multi-Totem. Multi-Totem, a lot of people don't run it because it's not the best DPS link, but it's a huge uptime, quality of life link, and it makes running Ballistas just way less irritating. I like it a lot. And then nothing else. The only other 2-link you need is somewhere on your gear, mark on hit, sniper's mark. Everything else is just random gems. So whatever combination of auras you're running, have them somewhere in your gear. Have a random 1-link blink arrow. That's that. If you can get a triple red or a double red blue setup, then run Divine Blessing, Life Tap Anger, or Divine Blessing, Life Tap Wrath. And yeah, that's basically that. Hopefully that is helpful for you guys. Tomorrow's update, 7 PM UK, will be showing off the build in maps, because this is a daily series, by the way. So if you're interested in this, make sure you sub and all of that fun stuff. I'm Tarke. Links to everything will be down below. And yeah, have a good day. Bye-bye.